We're here.
Hello. La la la.
La la la.
Hi, all. Welcome. It is Monday night.
Monday
I have
night.
to always think about it for a second. It's Monday night. Generational change.
We messed up today because I am actually wearing the clothes that I wore on Wednesday, and Jen is wearing the clothes she wore on Wednesday.
I don't recall that.
No,
I think you're wrong.
I think I'm right.
Whatever. I don't care.
My apologies for being a few minutes late. As everybody
always
knows, I am not the best time manager, and I freely admit that. I had a client that actually is very interested in one of the homes that.
Okay, we're not gonna spend our time talking about this, though.
Well, we won't.
No.
I just want to say that I feel like it was a promising.
Yeah, that's great.
2 hours worth of
Thank
time.
you. Okay.
But something more important is going on right now.
People in Florida.
People in Florida really need to know about the importance of who is actually running the state party. You see, for those of you who may or may not know, we are getting a slight reprieve from the clutches of former state chair Manny Diaz. Now, for those of you who may or may not know, Manny Diaz was the state party chair for, I guess, how long was he in charge? About 2.5 years?
Well, when did Michael Bloomberg buy our state? When did Michael Bloomberg?
2018.
Okay, so in 2018, when Michael Bloomberg came in and bought our state party, he and Debbie installed Manny Diaz at the top of the party. And
does everybody know who Debbie is?
Yeah, everyone who watches us knows who Debbie is. But it doesn't matter. We digress. The point is that this was never going to be like, a real winning plan. Like there was never going to be a winner. And let me say this first. Everyone knows I don't affiliate with the party other than being registered as a Democrat. I won't send them any money. I cannot join clubs until they stop taking corporate money. And let me say
You'll be waiting till you're dead.
And that's fine. I don't care. As long as they're on the corporate take, I'm not affiliating. However, our guest, Carolina Ampudia, is one of the people running for the state chair. And I will say that of the people that are in this race, she's the only one that would have any sort of chance of getting the party off the corporate teat. So she's the only person that if she were to come in, I could see having any sort of interaction with this party at some point in the future. Whereas everyone else, it's same old, same old. That's how I feel about it.
She's a former member of the SEIU and obviously a labor person through and through and former head of the Florida Progressive Caucus and is now running to be the Florida State Party chair. Carolina Ampudia. I don't want to mess that up.
I don't know what I do. I'm a gringa. She knows. Soy gringa, lo siento. Come on.
Welcome to Generational Change.
Thank you, guys. So it's Carolina Ampudia.
I said it right. I said it right.
You did.
I know, but I always say that's my 4 words. Soy gringa, lo siento, and it really does wonders because
that Duolingo's kicking in hard.
I do my best. I get along okay. I do okay.
You do.
Okay, I'm not great, but I do okay.
You're better than me, I think.
Well,
but then again, you've lived here, you're a Floridian, I'm not.
So Carolina, talk about what's going on because and we of course all saw today that now Nikki Fried officially jumped in this thing. And it seems to be.
Which could actually help.
Well, it could. I don't know. I don't think it helps anybody. But the point is that it's just more of the same. But it's interesting how people who lose races, somehow people think that people who lose races should be in charge of winning races. Like you're taking losers. These are people that are losers. Like the Republicans would never have this. So talk about why you're in this race and why you're different than the other people that are running for chair.
So again, thank you for having me. And the Florida Democratic Party is in complete disaster right now. We suffered electoral losses that were on historic levels. And we also have a state party that has lost its connection with the people. And there's a lot of registered Democrats that didn't feel the need or a reason why to show up and vote. Yeah. And this is just an example of the kind of not providing any type of solution, of not having the connection with the community, like I was saying. And it's also the lack of a bench that keeps recycling, like you were saying, losers, and put them in different positions, not just for electoral positions, but also in positions for the administration of the party. And
sorry, go.
And when you are running for an election on public office, it does not have exactly the same requirements as if you are running in an administration position in the party. You don't have to have the same qualifications, and the fact that people don't realize this is pretty shocking, I think, to me. The other thing is that we don't have a complete realization of the kind of work that the party needs in terms of rebuilding this party and rebuilding the connection with the community. So, as you were saying, I am a physician that turned into an organizer by chance, basically, because I was teaching pre-medical sciences in Broward College when I met you.
Yeah.
And we were still in that process of the unionizing when we met a few years ago, and not even sure that we were going to make it as a union, but we enlisted the help of SEIU. And within those months, actually, it's so funny that we are remembering this, because around the months where I met you, that's when we finally went to PERC and submitted our cards, and we won the formation of the union with 92% of the vote, which was really inspiring. And it's something that doesn't tend to happen in forming unions in a right-to-work state. So it was extremely empowering at that moment. And we were able to replicate that within 12 other colleges in the public sector in the state.
Yeah, no, you are definitely qualified organizer. Like that, to me, it's no doubt that you're a qualified organizer. And the issue, of course, with everybody in terms of the party people is, are you a fundraiser? Now, I personally do not share their sentiment. And you and I have talked about this, and I don't agree. But unfortunately, of the people voting for you, since it's not the general public, unfortunately, they care about that. So, how are they looking at, because I think that's one of the things they do find appealing about Nikki Fried.
Exactly. And of the other candidates. All of the other candidates are part of this money-making strategy that keeps the party not only sinking, because it's that magical mentality that with money you're going to have voters. Right. But with money you cannot even have voters to register, and then if you have them to register, that doesn't mean that they're going to show up and vote. And what we are losing there is the connection that you have with how do you translate money and donations into voters, right? And that builds with trust. And trust is a very hard thing to accomplish. And once it's lost and broken, like it is right now, it's even harder to rebuild. So you're asking about specifically on money, and that question is,
how are you bringing in the money? Like, how are you selling the people that vote for you? Like, because we know that isn't the thing. What they need to do is be out serving their community. And by the way, if they did that, the donations would come. See, that's the thing. They would raise money if they actually did something that offered people something.
No,
it would happen.
Money first to actually go out and help.
We can't win because we don't have money. No, you can't get money because you don't stand for anything, is like how we feel. That's why I can't, and I can't affiliate. Like it's very unfortunate.
I know. And I cannot blame anyone, because so many times I have felt like I cannot donate for that particular race or that particular group of people. I feel it. I understand the people, right? So when we are talking about this rebuilding of the party and the strategy of the party in connecting that party with the people, we want to start just like we did with the union in the process that I was describing. So having interpersonal connections is not a very expensive thing to do. And when you are doing this and being present in the community and being somebody that is visible, and you do this, Jen, you're there, you have kept the campaign going, you're present. in a way that does not ask for votes, this is actually very important, not only because you're building those relationships, but also it's giving you that intel, right? That you can, when you decide, if you decide to run it in the future, then you are going to have all of those relations and that information that then you can translate into your message, into your mode of action, into what you are going to be doing in the next steps. But yes, Peter, money is important, and that's one of the reasons that we are thinking of this system of, I call it dues, but that's only me because I come from that union world,
Right,
right?
right.
But it's really, it's small dollar donations that I call them to keep the party clean. And when we do that, is going to allow us to keep a steady roof over our heads, that we are not finding these crazy stories about not paying water that has happened, and also some payments to workers that were not made, also not a great thing. But it's also going to allow us to become a little more creative and not feel the pressure of just taking the money because people are giving it to you. As you know, there's, particularly on the Democratic side, there's a large contesting always of like, why are you taking that money, and we're trying to do this and you're doing that. And I think that it's a very valid question, that we should be very careful about standing for the things that we say that we care about. And so us making business with FPL, for example, and Big
Yeah.
Sugar and all of these organizations should never be tolerated, right?
Yeah.
And so there's lots of other organizations, that's the great thing, that are pushing for solar energy, that are pushing for really great things for the environment, that are working for trans youth, that are working, those are our natural allies.
Yeah.
And also, let's not forget about labor again. You know, labor should be our natural ally. The power of unions is that when run properly, and when workers have a voice, they are boots on ground, they are excited and really ready to work with any organization, more so if it's the political party that is going to be working with them and bringing their voices to the table as well. I think that we need to find those places where union can be more a partner, and labor, the entire labor sector, including the workers, not just the union leaders
bosses.
that sometimes run like a corporation.
Yeah.
But those voices of the workers should be highly represented. We live in a state that has over 50% of people living in poverty, 69% of the people live paycheck to paycheck. We have to be able to talk and their messages. We need to be able to bring those stories to any decision that we make. And yes, it's important to have money, but there's no money that substitute messages. And this message should be coming from the people, and not necessarily from our mouths, but from their mouths. We should be empowering the community, not just seeking to come and save them.
Right. Well, we just come around and ask for their vote. We don't actually serve them. We just come around and ask for their vote. That's the democratic way. Obviously you resonate with us because you're one of our people, but I think it's very important for people to understand the idea of having somebody at the head of our state party that actually comes from rank and file labor is like the best possible thing that could happen for our state party. Like, I can't stress that enough, because it really is different than the union boss people. We know that. That's a whole different animal. So, and nobody else in this is really at that point where you are, where you're really grassroots. And I think that would totally change the entire dynamic of our state. I do.
Yes.
I think it would change a lot of things. And I've said it, and I will make calls for you. And I'm very happy to help, because, guys, the only way I'll ever affiliate with this party is if they stop being corporate whores. And the only way that has a chance of happening is with someone like Carolina. So,
yeah, absolutely. And you know that the party has deviated so much that right now the conversation is not how do you sell this story, because this story resonates with the majority of people
Yes.
that I talk to, but how do we sell it to the people that have this tunnel vision and that keep on thinking and repeating this false narrative that the only thing that matters is winning elections, when the reality is that if you move the goalpost closer just by psychology, we know that we're going to have happier people, more dedicated people, more engaged with the kind of work that we want to do if those goals are closer, more attainable things. And that we need to also have a very sharp reality. One of the quotes that I like the most says that the main function of a leader is to first define reality, and the last one is to say thank you. And in the middle, a leader is a servant. So
supposedly that's what we're trying to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the only way we're ever going to win here. And you are we are very appreciated.
Thank you so much. So the reality is that we are not going to have major wins, regardless of who wins this election on 2024. But with the plan that we are providing, we're at least going to have a community and a base in the party that is going to be more empowered, more trained, more connected, more informed about the issues of the community, and that we are going to be able to fight together to get there.
Carolina, it goes without saying that you're the one person who is running, who is doing the due diligence to make sure that people understand that the way the party needs to be run is from the bottom up, not the top down. We know about a lot of the infrastructural problems within the state party. I think that the ascendancy of Governor DeSantis, who is now, depending on who you ask, the favorite to be the next president of the United States, I think that the Florida Democratic Party plays a significant role in his ability to ascend to that up that ladder. The loss in 2018 should have been a shot across the bow, but instead they didn't learn from their mistakes and have doubled down on the mistakes that were made. They didn't realize that, regardless of what happened with Andrew Gillum, that it was the message that he was delivering during the primary in particular, which was what was exciting people and getting them involved and making it possible that maybe could actually flip the state. But instead they decided, and I'm not even sure who you can necessarily blame. I think we've covered a lot.
We can name some people.
No, but let's not.
Okay.
My point is, I think that if there's one area that I think really hurts the state party, and I think that, obviously, Terry didn't do anything with it. Obviously, Manny made it worse. But I think the consultant class is a really big problem. People do not want to talk about the fact that you have these paid, you can call them paid losers because they're not paid to win. And the reason I say this, and even if you are a consultant who's going to hear this, the fact of the matter is, you lose all the time, and yet you somehow still get hired. You still make a ridiculous amount of money, and that's money that could be better served towards the state party infrastructure for, let's say, people on the ground who could be organizing different things locally, like what we do. And we don't get paid.
And reaching to the community and all of these things, right? And so we need to change that, remove some middle people from the equation, and also come to this realization that we have been wasting money, essentially. This idea of let's raise a lot of money, then the consultants are going to take over and they do the operation on the ground. When they leave after we lose, they move with all of those resources and nothing stays on the ground. So we're essentially poorer as an organization after they came than when they were coming.
Yeah, they siphon the resources. And by the way, that's by design. It's on purpose. I call them white collar carnies. And I think that like the way that they go from state to state, it really is that. And they will milk every single campaign for every ounce of money they can. And they always have someone on the inside of a campaign. And they also double dip. Somebody will be working as a staff for a campaign and getting paid whilst their company is also getting paid by the campaign that the company they own.
And in many instances that, that corporate entity that is involved from a consulting firm standpoint, they're also deliberately sabotaging the grassroots candidate if there was one who's involved with them. So
there's actually some that are like the one that we have here in Weston, very close to us. We're all in Broward County. That the husband is a Republican and does some consulting on the Republican side, and the wife is a Democrat and does the consulting on the Democratic side.
And what do you bet that it's all the same at the end of the day? Because we know
that is the exact same strategy as James Carville.
Oh no! Now see, that's more Lindsey Graham
and Mary Matlin.
You're much more Lindsey Graham.
The Republican, and if you saw the ridiculous townhome that they own on the Potomac in Alexandria, Virginia,
it's grotesque.
It's like, that thing doesn't pay for itself.
We can't go down this rabbit hole because
the idea, though, guys, is that we can do that. That we can remove those middlemen, and that we can invest in our community and use those resources. Yes, we need some money, but we can use those resources into an investment, which is education in our community. Make sure that we have that capacity of reaching out, that we have a capacity of recording some of the results of those conversations, and that we're building up that message based on the interactions that we have. Every contact should generate data, and all of that data should be put together so that we have better results. The state is going to be divided in like regions, and we're going to promote something that it's a fast response for anything. So you're going to have a small nuclei, and the nuclei is going to have a group of small counties, or maybe just one large county, and that you're supposed to, at the end of a meeting, you're supposed to have a staffer on the meeting, and they have exactly, since you close your computer for that meeting, that staffer has 24 hours to deliver a form of a response. Either you're doing great, this is the feedback, or these are the resources that you were asking for, this is the date that you're going to get those resources, this is where we are, this is the information that you requested. Something should happen there. But in 24 hours, there's no need that we have to wait more. And some of these operations are so fast-paced that it's ridiculous that we have to spend sometimes over a month. And I have heard stories of people waiting for 2 months to just get an email response. And during elections, this should be even more important and more streamlined. So candidates are going to have a hotline that if they have any issue on the ground or with technology, they're supposed to have a voice on the other side of the phone that can tell them, okay, this is where you need to be clicking, or this is where you're going to go.
We need to get you in, but we have to go. We can't keep going. But we know that it's a certain group of people that can vote for you. So I can't say everybody vote for Carolina, because you really can't. But get me a list, and I will be happy to make calls for you.
Thank you. And for everybody that's listening, please talk to your elected state committee people, who are the ones that are going to be voting, and also your elected officials who are also going to be voting. And please challenge them so that they don't continue repeating the same mistakes and expecting the different result.
Thank you so much for coming, Carolina.
Carolina, how can people find you or anything that you may be doing leading up to the election?
She has a website. It's a Carolina. What is it? Tell me.
It's carolinaforfdp.com. And you can also find us on Facebook. That's Carolina for FDP. And also you can find us on Twitter, and that's 1MDC underscore. So it's 1MD_C. And that's the Twitter handle. Sorry about that.
Yeah, guys, show some support. This is definitely an uphill battle, and they have this weighted vote and other sort of super delegate kind of nonsense that we have at the state level. So there will be, I am sure, chicanery afoot.
Keep doing what you're doing. Obviously, with the two candidates now in the race that the party is going to basically be, going back and forth with, this presents another lane for you to kind of run through. And depending on what happens between now and February 25th, I believe is the date of the election, you can create more and more momentum for yourself, as well as more and more leverage for the non-corporate left, regardless of what ultimately ends up happening.
It's all leverage.
So create as much of it as you can. And I'm sure by the time we hit the home stretch, which will be next week, there will be a lot to discuss. And who knows, if anything's possible nowadays. So let's hope for the best.
Thank you so much. And if I can make just a quick shout out, thank you to Senator Nina Turner for her endorsement. And also thank you to People for Democracy in America and also Florida for Bernie for their very kind endorsements.
All right. Thanks, Carolina.
Thanks, Carolina.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see you.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's the only safe way that it's ever going to work, is to merge labor into the party. And there's no better way to merge labor into the party than actually bring labor into the party. Fascinating concept.
She's a lovely person, and she does.
She's lovely. Your girl's lovely.
A lot of great work locally, which is kind of what people need.
Yeah.
The ones that are being selected, if you will, because it's not elected; it's selected. They're very often individuals that are just either looking for a job or looking to maintain the status.
Carolina walks the walk. She's actually an organizer, a grassroots, public servant-minded person that I have known for now, seems 4 years. Now,
nothing, of course, is ideal, but I will say, and if you guys want to know ultimately where we would stand if it wasn't Carolina who would get elected, anybody that isn't Debbie Wasserman Schultz's choice is who we would support. So
look it up.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe me, look it up.
Yeah, look it up.
Look it up.
So let's talk about a lot of issues that are very important considering what's going on right now. Home and abroad, of course.
Depressing.
But, they say we're fighting wars overseas. We're fighting wars at home.
We're poisoning our people.
Yeah, the war at home is fighting the corporate special interest agenda that has been completely dominating our country. But now it seems to be getting right up in everybody's face. And, of course, that is the Ohio Railroad derailment, which was a complete disaster in East Palestine, Ohio.
Palestine.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I can't say Palestine.
No, it's not. It's Palestine.
Okay, well, okay, linguist.
No, this town is called that. It's not my opinion.
Well, anyway, in Palestine East, there was just kidding. There was a absolutely tragic train derailment, and it was something that, as is not a surprise, could have been avoided. And as one can imagine, and we'll get into this with our wonderful guest,
the poetic justice of the timing of this with the railway workers' strike.
There is a lot of denial going around. And my goodness, I hope whoever has to defend President Biden and Secretary Pete,
Mayo Pete,
they must get paid extremely well, because you have to take a lot of showers to wash off that dirt after you're done lying through your teeth to pretend like they're not as guilty as sin when it comes to this. But I digress. You're never a former Marine. He is a Marine. Former candidate for the U.S. Senate. You're cutting me off.
Sorry, I'm excited.
For the U.S. Senate in North Carolina on the Green Party ticket. Yeah. A Green that is worth voting for. You get my drift. Matthew Hoh, welcome back to Generational Change.
Hey guys, it's good to see you. Thank you for having me back. I hope your New Year's going well. Is it too late to wish you guys Happy New Year? Okay, Happy New Year. It's nice to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for waiting. We're running a little late. He was running a little late. And we have this party chair race that's going on here with the Florida party imploding. And there is an opportunity for there to be an actual change. And I'm not necessarily overly optimistic that will happen, but I'm just happy that there's even the potential that it could happen. So that's what we were discussing, because that's the only person in this race that could potentially really change their thoughts on service and money, and which would really change things.
Right. Well, here in North Carolina this past weekend, the North Carolina Democratic Party shocked a lot of people because they actually fired their chair after the North Carolina Democratic Party just did abysmal and I say this as objectively as I can, know, right. And certainly people who followed my campaign probably understand my attitude or feelings towards the North Carolina Democratic Party. But they shocked a lot of people because they fired their chair in a vote. Of course, she wasn't actually fired, but elected a 25-year-old young woman to run the party. youngest. I think she might be the youngest state party chair in history. At least in North Carolina, she is, and possibly across the U.S. But the North Carolina Democratic Party just performed abhorrently. I mean, lost everything it could. The Republicans came away with a supermajority in the state Senate. They are one seat away in the state House from having a supermajority, and they're working on changing the state House rules so that they can call a session in, as soon as they realize the Democrats don't have the vote. I mean, so it's basically have a supermajority, but also too, the Democrats lost all their statewide elections, and they only won one race that you really could say it was contested. In our state, in North Carolina, we have 150 state Senate and House seats. The Democrats chose not to run candidates in over 40 of those races.
Yeah,
That's
that
like
sounds
here.
like Florida.
Yeah. We had about 20.
Matt, the consultants have to be
And
paid.
well, the thing is, what's so frustrating is they stand there, all the Democrats, and we have a very big supermajority, our legislature, and all the Democrats are constantly bitching about it, but yet nobody thought that it might make a good idea to run some candidates in viable seats. We had about 20 viable seats.
Yeah.
And nobody was there because they put all their money behind Charlie Crist and Val Demings in unwinnable races.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable how much you're saying, Peter, but consultants is no joke. Even losing elections make money, right? We say that I'm in the anti-war community. That's what we say about war, right? Even losing wars make money. But even losing elections are going to make money. People are going to do very well. And I heard what you'd said, previously. It's absolutely the case. You can lose race after race, election after election, just do nothing to demonstrate any type of commitment to furthering your cause, to try and do something for your supposed constituency. And it's okay because your constituency is walled off from you. You're insulated from it. This is all about and so it is. I hear what you guys are saying, and it's really disheartening because you see, I see here in North Carolina, obviously what you're saying in Florida, but we see place after place where the system is so corrupt. Everything is so cynical within it, whether it be the rules or the people that populate it, that they're, the idea of losing hope and giving up is quite easy. But then the reason why you don't is because you'd be giving up and you'd be letting these people win. So I guess that's why we don't.
Well, that's what we say. It's like that. What does Chris Hedges say? You don't fight fascists because you can win. You fight fascists because they're fascists. It's kind of like, that's not the point. The point is that it's the hand we've been dealt. Right. That's right. That's right.
Friends of the show, Keaton from Due Dissonance, has pointed out, everyone's out there running cover. It's very unique because of somebody who, served in what I consider to be not only the most sought after from a respect perspective if you're going to serve in the military, but also the ones that put themselves in the greatest danger. You see a lot when people talk about this hero worship that goes on in society, especially with Trump.
The politicians in general.
The type of hero worship that goes on for somebody like a Pete Buttigieg is really perplexing. And, Joe Biden's been the vice president. He was a senator for, 40 years. He's the president now. I can understand there being a knee-jerk defense of somebody that you feel like you have a connection to. Again, it's all BS, but, understanding human psychology, I get Joe on that level to a degree. But Pete, I mean, that is the greatest media creation I've ever seen.
It's a Clinton. It's brought to you by the Clintons.
And the average liberal who looks at Pete and admires him the way a conservative admires Trump, they really don't see the connection. Like, I don't understand how it does not compute with them that they're just as sycophantic as they are on the MAGA side when they think that Trump can't do anything wrong. Whereas with Pete, he hasn't done anything but done wrong. He hasn't done anything right. He is a disaster.
Are we going right into Pete? We're going to go right into transfer.
Can't help it, because you're seeing what's happening as a result of the train derailment in East Palestine. Got it right. They don't even want to acknowledge that there's some responsibility on his part.
I'm so
Every
sad about that
stupid
whole thing.
sycophant,
I'm so
every
sad.
paid consultant
Right.
is running cover for this guy. And we all know why they're doing it. But obviously, would like to hear your thoughts as to what
You are following this whole little thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's quite scary, right? Because this could happen anywhere. I mean, my train tracks are, I mean, not now. Maybe years ago, I could have thrown a baseball and hit them. Maybe a little,
Yeah.
maybe farther. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, that's where our train tracks are. I mean, this could happen anywhere.
Yeah.
And so, and it's something I think most people have been saying. This is coming. Something like this is coming. You know, not just on the railroad side, but across our infrastructure, across our industry. Just listening to Ralph Nader the other day talk about how that poor man died in that Caterpillar plant, fell into the vat of molten, lava, basically. Thermal annihilation is what the coroner's report said. Left behind 3 little girls, all because Caterpillar didn't want to abide by any safety regulations. There's no way of charging these people with any criminal actions, and their pals in government are not going to do anything about it. And they're going to circle the wagons and protect themselves, just like what we're seeing with here. I'm going to post in our private chat, because I can't put it in the comments, I guess, an essay I wrote a couple of years ago when Buttigieg was running for president. I looked into his time in the military, what he actually did, how he never got a security clearance, how he never had an MOS, how this was all just one preparation for him running nationally. He knew that having that military pedigree would benefit him. And certainly, if you remember during the campaign, there are photos of him carrying an M4 in uniform all the time, even though he really didn't do anything, And I titled, for people who haven't seen it, it's in Counterpunch, Heaven Protect Us from Men Who Live the Illusion of Danger. And that's what you have. You have like this notion that these men and women are either serious, that they have somehow gone through life experiences that have hardened them, that Pete Buttigieg's time in Afghanistan was the same as JFK's time with PT-109 in the Pacific during the Second World War, that somehow these are men, and women that have been hardened by life experiences because they've chosen to put themselves into these realms. The same thing too, that somehow that these people are going to the fact that, say, Joe Biden is still self-promoting as being Union Joe. Joe, right? I mean, like Joe from Scranton, Pennsylvania, is still talking about the hard scrabble he came from, about his parent, his dad, and his uncle, and blue, lunch pail type politics. And after what they just did to the railroad workers back in December. And so Buttigieg, you have that. You have these rail issues. You have, of course, all the things that have happened with the airlines.
I was going to say, let's talk about Southwest just in and of itself. Like, the whole thing is a disaster. Well,
I'm flying Southwest in 2 weeks, so let's all knock on wood and hope it's still going. It's still flying at that point. But same thing too. But then also, even we had 2 years ago, the supply chain issues, the ports were all messed up. The trucks coming out of the ports couldn't get out. On and on. And at that point, particularly when Pete went on paternity leave, which is something that most people in this country don't have, he went on it though, right? So they're so out of touch. Oh, good.
And he went on it for like 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, right. Nobody has that. Meanwhile, that was at the point where, like, first time, I'm almost 50 years old. I've never seen stores that were missing stuff on the shelves. I've never gone into a Target and seen it empty like I saw it 2 years ago. And he's on paternity leave, and it's not really his fault anyway. Yeah, he's the secretary, but he just took over. The whole idea, I think, was that most people have no idea who the Secretary of Transportation ever is. And if he does stuff, he kind of goes around and opens up new airports or stands on ships and gets his photo taken, like that kind of thing. That this was going to be not a real serious job. No one's going to pay attention to it, but it allowed him to be out. And I think most importantly, it would allow him to be out meeting the high profile big donors of the Democratic Party. They're only just getting to know him. And of course, this catastrophe that has been his time in running the transportation department, most highlighted by what's happened here in Palestine, is just, and more is going to come. More is going to come. We have a corrupted, degraded, thoroughly debased infrastructure in this country that is controlled by a greedy industry that's bought off the politicians. I'm surprised it hasn't been worse than what we've seen.
And one of the things that I was just watching, like the parts on these trains are like from the turn of the century. And I mean like the last century, by the way. And it's so absurd that it almost feels like the bizarro world. Like, how would you not expect a derailment to happen? How would you not expect that? And by the way, another thing, and this doesn't get talked about enough, is what those products that are being transported, who they're benefiting and what they're for. Because my understanding is that our railways that go through our towns that potentially pollute and poison our people are taking things through them that never benefit people in this country. And we have that down here, specifically a railway that goes across in Miami through some of our vulnerable areas. And it's stuff that gets shipped from the port. So it's mining the resources, poisoning our people, and sending things overseas. So there's not even a benefit you have to look at everything societally, like cost benefit. Like, yeah, some things aren't great, but we need it because of X, Y, and Z. This doesn't do anything for us. This just profits the railway carriers.
Well, it's something I was talking about with a friend of mine about, he was talking about the Northeast. I was talking about here, North Carolina. You drive around, I had that campaign last year and I went across the entire state. We're a big state, lots of geographic differences in North Carolina. And you saw the same things over and over again. And you see the same destitution, the same towns that have been left behind, whether it be white towns or black towns, mountain towns or coastal towns. It's the same thing. I mean, the number of times I saw this past year, and I had seen this before, but you pass through, so you don't pay much attention. But now I'm a candidate out there, shaking hands and kissing babies and everything. And so you notice these things more. And, but the number of times I saw this past year, see things that look like scenes out of movies, gas stations that were overgrown with ivy and moss and vegetation. The number of times you see that. And what we were talking about was this idea that we have these pass through towns. These towns that have been denuded, that have been devoid, that the industry's been taken out of. There's no manufacturing anymore. And there's no small farms anymore. There's nothing in these towns. And so they become nothing but pass-through towns. And they're used. They're utilized for services. You have a gas station. You have a Hardee's. You have a Taco Bell. That's it. That's the whole purpose. It's to facilitate other people. And that's what most of rural America is like. I don't know anything about Palestine, Ohio. I'd never heard of it. I would have called it Palestine as well, right? I mean, never heard of the place. The only reason why I know of it now is because you had this terrible, I mean, like this apocalyptic type of I don't know if those photos are photoshopped or not. And the things that you're reading.
I don't think so.
And
here's the thing is that if the mainstream media were covering this, then I would question all of the photos. But the fact that they're not touching this really, like this is getting so little coverage for the disaster that it is. And they've already now cleared it. The EPA said, oh, it's safe to go back in there. I don't think so. And I don't believe them. And you know that what the railroad carrier is paying the town $25,000, which comes out to $5 a person in that town. That's what they're saying.
On cue, the train's actually coming by. Just don't know if you guys could hear that.
It's absolutely ridiculous. These people are being poisoned. And not only can you not know that you can't believe who's doing the tests, but even testing anything now, that's not telling us anything. They don't even know half of the stuff how things operate with ecosystems and what this stuff. They don't know how it will affect you down the road. You know what I mean? There's no accounting for that.
The problem that we have is that, and we have a member of the chat. We get the the normie Dems that'll float in here and they'll defend the status quo. That'll happen. But the point is, our infrastructure as a whole in this country is basically a D. Which is unbelievable.
It's embarrassing.
So I don't give a damn why this train derailed. If we lived in a country that actually valued infrastructure, which again speaks to the whole idea of supporting labor, which we don't. then we would be in a much more beneficial economic situation and environmental situation, because the infrastructure would be upgraded, and that would include having high-speed rail. Any of these normie Dems that are supporting this infrastructure bill, which was supposed to be basically a bargaining chip to get the Build Back Better bill passed.
See how that went? How'd that go for you?
This is a corporate giveaway of the worst kind. And the ones who are out there saying, oh, we did a good thing. The misnomer that a lot of these normie, comfortable liberal Dems have in places like the Charlotte suburbs, Asheville, places like that. So
don't knock Asheville.
My point being is that if the bill allocates 2 to 3% of what is actually being spent on something that's good, they will act like this is a great bill. We did really well. We are now having to fight Republicans on Social Security.
Yeah.
These are all distractions from the reality that the system does not work for working people. In fact, it doesn't even work for middle, or in many cases, upper middle class people. This works for the upper class and only the upper class. Yeah. Now, are there certain advantages some people perceive if you're below the poverty line? The idea with the governmental infrastructure that we have right now is that if you're below the poverty line, they want you to stay there. They actually
want you to just die.
Well, that's true too. They don't want to have to pay you anything. But the whole idea, it's like the idea behind the living wage versus a minimum wage, which of course is a slave wage. We would rather you have to get subsidized by the government, because then you're a dependent.
Then you're a serf.
Then you really need us, and we can get you to vote a certain way. Don't ever expect us to give you financial freedom. That ain't coming. But we can allow you to work within a system that makes you dependent on us. That's why so many places never change. This is the basic economic platform of the corporate special interest.
You realize you're talking to a socialist, right?
Well, whoever I'm talking to, I think he gets.
Okay, no, I think that's what you're saying.
Exactly spot on. I mean, I think one of the things that we encounter, though, is so many people think that what has occurred and is occurring is a product of nature, that what is occurring is organic, that this is how things just happen to work, that there's been no plan behind it, no design, that this is not the brilliant success of 5 or 6 decades of financialization policies, that this is what the neoliberal policies working look like. Make sure all the money goes to the top. It also includes other things such as regulatory capture. I mean, there's what federal agency has any type of teeth in it?
None.
That is right. I mean, look at what we've just seen from the FAA. Look what we know about with OSHA. You brought up the EPA. Remember how well the EPA did after 9/11? How many people are dead because of what the EPA said about ground zero and how it was safe to go back?
They're still fighting to get coverage for their first responders for certain types of cancer.
You literally needed Jon Stewart to run a multi-year campaign just to get people suffering from burn pits.
It's you really can't make this shit up.
So this is all part of a plan now. And I think what we're running up against, or I think a lot of people view this is the way it works. This is the way, or worse, this is because of too much government meddling. If you left industry up to its own, it will, but they're paying too many taxes and they're too busy doing diversity seminars and et cetera, for them to maintain their infrastructure, right? If they were allowed to keep the money they make, they will be able to reinvest in themselves, in their infrastructure, in their people, in their productivity, all that nonsense, because we know it's not true, because they barely pay anything now. And where we see, where do they put all their money? They don't put it back into their people. They don't put it into their productivity. They certainly don't put it into the safety, into safety things, right? I mean, it goes into stock buybacks, executive compensation. I mean, the amount of money we're talking about here is trillions of dollars.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So none of this is a surprise. Like I said, I think the only thing that's surprising is that it hasn't been happening more often, and God help us, I think it might.
I want to touch upon a very important point that you were making regarding the faux militarism of Buttigieg and how...
Oh, no, I believe he's probably a war hawk, if that's what you're talking. You mean faux, like
he's not
resume?
He's not
like an embellishment of his resume?
He's not somebody who actually, you know, he wasn't served in entrenched warfare. He wasn't somebody who
I don't think he's like George Santos level.
Well, no. Okay.
Okay. I just want to clarify.
Smart.
Like, I do believe he did actually technically do those things.
Can you talk as a Marine to the impact that DeSantis is going to have when he hits the national stage? Because people really do not understand the fact that he served in combat, the fact that he was JAG, the fact that he was involved with Guantanamo Bay, that there is a huge portion of the population that has been wanting a commander-in-chief like this for a long time. Right. And they're going to very likely get it with him. Can you talk about how underrated an aspect his military background actually is?
Hey, you saying that? I mean, I think he's the kind of guy who's going to take the title Generalissimo, right, and make himself a uniform with all kinds of gold braids and trinkets hanging off of it. I think he's going to really embrace that. I think he's really going to embrace that militarism. I think there is a grotesque side to him, of course, but that ties into a lot with the aspects of the evilness that resides within the military, that resides within. Look, war is nothing more than organized murder. Those who revel in it have a type of sociopathy or psychopathy, whichever one it is, that has to be understood. And I think DeSantis fits that. I think, of course, we have a culture that we had this aberration. And I think there are ways we can get back to it. And I would like to see our political system get back to it. Let's not forget that 2006, the Democrats take the House for the first time in 40 years because of the Iraq War. 2008, we get our first black president because he's an anti-war candidate. He beats Hillary Clinton, then he beats the war hero, John McCain. I mean, so there are the war. As long as the war is touching people, it can have political consequences and carry weight. But once they made these wars invisible, particularly in the second half of the Obama administration, you started losing that. And then, of course, what you have then is the ability for people like DeSantis to demagogue off of it, to wave the bloody shirt, to utilize photos of him in uniform to shout down any opposition to militarism. You don't have a right to say this. You never served. You hear this stuff all the time, tying into the cultural phenomenon of militarism in the United States. I didn't realize this, but there's been this Navy SEAL show on CBS for like 6 or 7 years now. It's a huge hit. You know, when I got on my Apple TV the other day, the banner up the top that was advertising it was, that nice young guy from The Office. You know, he's Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan. Right. I mean, which is
John
a show.
Krasinski?
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's a show that is written one of the, at Langley. I mean, that is a show that is a CIA production through and through. Yeah. And I mean, so he fits right into that, and he's going to segue right into that. He's going to click into it like a puzzle piece. And I think this is the point I have not heard many others bring up, but I think you're absolutely right. And I think it gives him some degree above Trump where you can't go after him for not serving like you could with Donald Trump, call him Captain Bone Spurs or whatever they used to call him or whatnot. Right. I mean, so I think there's a real danger with DeSantis here with his ability to use his photos in uniform, his, utilize that to kind of promulgate his superiority. And Buttigieg did that as well. Buttigieg in 2020 in the debates at times said things along the lines of, as the only person here who's been in combat.
Yeah.
So trying to maneuver that into a place of authority.
Yeah.
Sniveling little
well,
shit.
I can't stand people that play cards. That's playing a card. Okay. Everyone knows your resume. Everyone knows your history. It's like Debbie with the breast cancer survivor thing. People like to play cards to appeal to whatever the audience is that they're in front of. And it makes it very not genuine to me. And to me, the people that I meet like you, who are people that have served and yet are anti-war, that's what makes the most sense. The people that are the most pro-war are people that I don't think have ever really done that.
That's the big difference between DeSantis and somebody like Buttigieg. Buttigieg will say, well, what DeSantis will say is that, well, the time that I was deployed in Iraq, and this is what I was, he won't even say I served. He would just say, well, the time that I was deployed in Iraq and I was doing X, Y, and Z. He'll make it really personal. He just knows how to do this.
Just only bragging about it to a point where it's obvious. He does it, Pete, but like that was gratuitous.
It was. It's braggadocious and it's not good. And and again, that's why I think Trump, who I think he's really from an objective perspective, his attacks on DeSantis are not going to work the way that they work on other people. In fact, he looks kind of desperate the way that he's been going after him. And DeSantis has actually been.
He won't get a rise out of him at all.
He just count. There's a difference between ignoring him like Jeb Bush tried to ignore him, and then there's ignoring him and actually having your actions speak louder than words like DeSantis will do. When people are attacking DeSantis or Trump is attacking DeSantis, you see a lot of people going after Trump and saying that's not cool. I don't like that. With anybody else, they're totally
laughing at it.
And all the while, we're sitting here on the other side, recognizing that DeSantis' ascent to the presidency has been years in the making, not because he's this manufactured media creation, but because he's been a very savvy politician, coupled with the other side of the aisle that pretends like they're really representing working people and they're not. And this country is getting so desperate for some type of leadership, somebody that will speak truth to power right now. That is desperately needed.
This is how fascism happens. It's created by neoliberalism.
So my big question for you is, you obviously ran for the U.S. Senate in the Green Party. Obviously, the 2024 election is coming up. People are going to be looking for leaders. Now, I'm not saying you should run for president in the Green Party.
Yes, he thinks that, though.
But what I am saying is, where do you see your future in terms of how to be involved? Because I will say that if you did run, regardless if it's within the Green or wherever you would do it, I think you would actually have the type of working class / also being a service member who can actually reach people that need to be reached.
Well, and independent people. But he actually did call me up and say, Matthew Hoh should run for president. I'm just letting you know that, like he did. He said, I'm going to let him know that he should.
Well, I think if there's anybody that could
you're
run,
the only person in the Green Party that he thinks could do that.
You're the only person who could actually run on the Green Party ticket that I think would actually attract people. There are people that will overlook the fact that the Green Party's a joke, but actually like you and say, well, I don't really like this party, but I like what you're saying, and I will support you. Just as there was a lot of people who said, I can't stand the Republican Party, but I like what Trump is saying, so I'll vote for him. I don't like the Democratic Party, but I like what Bernie is saying, so I will vote for him.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't compare Matthew to Trump. Bernie is a much more
I think I used a pretty good. I think I used a
that's very kind. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I am not running for anything in 2024 and don't know about the future after that. And, I used to always hear people say that and be like, that guy, that's a load of shit, that guy, but no, actually it's true. I mean, like I have more sympathy for people who say that, where, right now I'm working on anti-war stuff and I want to concentrate on that. Because we are at this really dangerous point. It varies between, it's like you're in the opening moments of the movie The Day After, or it's like you're in a Simpsons episode right now. It's absolutely it's absolutely absurd what is occurring and the danger that we are at. But I mean, in terms of what needs to be done, certainly there's a lot of work to be done. We have, I would say, if I'm involved politically in the future, it's going to be more towards state level ballot access efforts, ways to try and get candidates and parties onto ballots, to cause disruption, to cause change, to try and get some type of major reforms in ranked choice voting, proportional representation, as well as the other things that we need, ending gerrymandering, getting money out of politics, et cetera, et cetera. But it'll be interesting to see what occurs on the left these next couple years. I'm not very optimistic that much is going to occur.
When you say left, you have to be specific as to whom you're referring, because are you speaking of the Democrats?
No, I'm speaking of the independent political left.
Just actual left. Okay.
The actual left. Yeah. Okay. Not the Democratic Party.
I was going to say, I just want to make sure.
I mean, I think within the Democratic Party, you'll have more of the same. I think you might see a challenger. I'm not sure what Marianne Williamson has said in the last week or two. I know she was floating it and kind of making the rounds on the podcasts and talk shows. And I don't know what she has settled down with on that. But I expect to see the Democratic Party go the way it has been, where there may be a challenge, where there'll be somebody who'll be putting forth a lot of great ideas, and then they'll get crushed, and the corporate side of the party will win. And so on the left, outside the Democratic Party, is there any chance of organizing effectively and doing it professionally and having people who can competently perform? in all aspects in terms of mobilization, organization, fundraising. I mean, look, I've been told this. I haven't gone to the FEC website and looked it up or not, but I've been told I raised the most money last year for any campaign out to the side of Democratic or Republican Party in the country.
Awesome.
It was nothing. It was nothing. You know, it didn't mean anything in terms of being able to get the results to move the needle a bit, if you will, right? I mean, so we have to have a humility with how are we approaching this. At the same time, too, that there's as many good reasons for running national and state level candidates that have no chance as there are for not. And if you give up that ground, if you give up that space, no one is representing anything then you've just given in to this idea that we can never have discussions in certain states on Medicare for all. We can never have discussions on rent control. We can never have discussions on living wage or climate change, because those things will be excluded in any type of race where the Democratic Party does not need to look to its left. But I think there's a lot to be said about this, I guess. I'll be very interested to see what occurs this next year in particular to set anything up, and who will be willing to stick their neck out to try and build something. But I mean, honestly, I don't see the parties that are on the left at this point doing anything that will matter, you know, in the sense of actually putting together some type of unified effort. I think there really has to be some type of new structure built. And I think it has to be asymmetrical. I think it cannot be done in the way that we have done things in the past. And I'll give you an example from the anti-war work I've been doing. Will you give us your
website so we could put it up while you're talking about this? Because you have an organization, right?
Yeah, I'm with the Eisenhower Media Network. And
is this where the anti-war group, like, is this what the stuff you're working on?
We do stuff like this primarily. It's our effort is to get veterans who are anti-war, who are against the military-industrial complex, who are trying to bring some degree of sanity into the conversation about foreign policy, about militarism, into the national media. That's the effort. So basically having a speakers bureau for anti-war veterans, if you will.
Love that.
But, you know, you look at the anti-war community for years have been trying to replicate what it did in the 60s and 70s, trying to do rallies and speeches and protests and everything, civil disobedience, all good stuff, all necessary, not saying it's not needed, but it's not effective, not in a way that it's going to actually have an impact. I mean, you look at, as we approach the 20th anniversary of the Iraq War, I mean, those demonstrations were massive. I mean, the biggest demonstrations in human history were the anti-Iraq War demonstrations of February and March 2003. Didn't stop the war. I mean, what I see, though, is I see groups doing things very smartly. There's an organization called Defend the Guard. What they have done is that they are going into state legislatures and they are proposing legislation that a National Guard unit cannot be mobilized to go overseas unless there's a declaration of war. So on Wednesday, they'll be providing public comment in Maryland. Maryland just mobilized its Maryland National Guard to go to Syria to protect the oil fields that the United States seized under the Trump administration, and that produce about 70,000 barrels of oil a day that go to some unnamed private company. And this is what the citizens of Maryland are doing, providing the defense force for, right? And it's been that way in Syria since the Trump administration, that National Guard units do that work. Throughout the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, National Guard units accounted for over 40% of our forces in those countries. It would not have been possible to wage those wars without the National Guards. So what this organization, Defend the Guard, has realized is that if we come out from this way, if we take away their ability to utilize the National Guard, they can't wage these wars without declaring war. And so this is what I mean, where we have to see these things kind of asymmetrically, find where their weaknesses are, and do things differently. Then we can't expect the successes of the 60s and 70s, whether they be civil rights, anti-war, environmental, nuclear, whatever it may be, to have the same effect now as they did 50 years ago. Because what we're up against is a living organism that evolves, that adapts, that of course is going to say, okay, these protests, marches, these are very effective things in the 60s and 70s. We're going to insulate the politicians now through a host of measures, mostly money, to make sure that next time they get their act together, like we did with Occupy, like we did with Standing Rock, like we did with Black Lives Matter and the post George Floyd murder, right? Where you have 15 to 20 million people on the streets, but then you get no political change. How is that possible? Well, it's because over the decades, the establishment, the powers that be, understood the threat, and they insulated the politicians from the threat so that, yeah, you can go out and march and chant and do everything you want, but it doesn't change votes, unfortunately. And so we have to find ways to do that. And getting back to your point about independent politics, left politics, one of the ways I believe is to run candidates, run campaigns, disrupt these manufactured, well-manicured, deliberate two-party setups, cause disruption, and force the state legislatures to react to that, because people are running multiple candidates in this system only meant for two candidates, and the results we're expecting are not happening anymore. It has to be done on a mass level, of course, and it has to be done professionally and competently. But I think that's how you get the disruption that will then cause some degree of change. And I know people don't want to hear about electoralism and everything, but I don't know. I've been places where electoralism was destroyed. I've seen what it looks like. I've seen people kill each other, and I can tell you, I'll just say this. The left is not going to win in a fist fight. It's not.
No, clearly.
Definitely.
We're not.
And they won't have. Here's the thing: when the apocalypse happens, the left is going to be stuck in coastal cities and trying to call for somebody, and when there's no more power. Okay, so these are not survivalists we're talking about. I know I'm going to Floribama and going to go look up Bo, because Bo's he'll know what's going on.
Can you talk briefly about your thoughts on worker strike back and what Kshama Sawant is attempting to do? I do think that, if anything, has probably the most potential.
Yeah.
If it's, handled properly.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw what happened with some of the other groups.
Well, but the difference is that she's not co-optable. That's the difference. She's already very established and successful. She has a proven track record of what she does and stands for. She didn't just create an organization.
Sure.
What happened? You're muted. Something happened.
There we go.
Okay,
yeah,
there you go.
I mean, she was so successful in terms of what she did legislatively compared to relative to, and then also too, the way she withstood those assaults against her, recall campaigns bankrolled by Amazon and Boeing. Yeah. I mean, she defeated them. Yeah. And so for her willingness to step aside, she could have done the easy thing and stayed there. It wouldn't have been easy. She would have had to defeat recall after recall and fight every time, but she could have done that, but she's chosen to do something differently. And I really admire her for that. I think that her efforts are we'll see if they work, but I think that type of organizing where you all just saying a little while back about how there is no more upper middle class. Well, there's really not much of a middle class either. Where do you draw the line between the working class and the middle class?
Oh no, I was saying there's no more middle class.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, when 63% of us are living paycheck to paycheck, so we need someone like Sawant who can unify, bring together these diverse groups of whether they see themselves as middle class or working class, but they actually all living in the same household together because everyone's moving in together because no one can afford the rent or no one can get a mortgage, not with the prices and 6% interest. I mean, right. I mean, so you're gonna, I think we'll see, but unfortunately, I feel like we're starting over again. I feel like there has been nothing that both the Democrats and Republicans were so successful from, from the 80s on, or maybe I guess since McGovern, in terms of their desire to pursue electoral politics in a manner that was going to make sure that they were always going to be flush with cash, divide the system up so that it's roughly split, right? And that's how it works. The White House changes over, the House and Senate constantly changes over, the governorships are roughly split, the state houses are roughly split, and so red's got some, blue's got the others, everyone wins. And as you're saying before, Peter, with the amount of money in this, the consultants keep making money, and then of course the relationship between politicians and industry, they're all going to have golden parachutes. So if you don't get reelected, don't worry. You're going to get on a couple of different boards. You're going to be fine. You've got plenty of things ahead of you. So, I mean, they've been so successful at this that I feel that we, for decades, or it has been for decades, is this constant attempts to like get something going, get a foundation going. I mean, you've seen with the Green Party where they've been around for 40 years and they don't have anything. They have almost no money in their bank account. I think they have less than 20 states with ballot access right now. You know, I mean, it's just like the ability to keep up and to fight has just been, they've been overwhelmed. And the same, I think, with the right, the shit show that the Libertarian Party is right now. I mean, the fact that they are, don't want to get into all that, but yeah, I mean, that sense of it just, I think it's frustrating for a lot of people that the conversations continually be about starting something new, about laying the foundation, about building infrastructure, hearing the need to create networks and not seeing it happen. And I think people then turn off, of course.
Last thing I want to touch on, we both would love to hear about. Obviously, we talked briefly about this prospect of an anti-war rally, but what I think is more important.
Well, we weren't like participating in that.
No,
there is one, obviously. I'm sure you're aware that there's this big.
And now it's splintered off, and apparently Code Pink is going to do their own thing. Could you just talk about the importance of, like any movement, like the workers' strike back, like a new political party, the importance of having the right leadership, having the right people, whether in this case, in my opinion, if you're going to have an anti-war rally, the only people who really should be speaking are people who have served in combat, people who actually know what the horrors of war actually is, that can speak to the American people and tell them, this is hell, you don't want it. The Ukrainian people don't want it. The Yemeni people don't want it. The Iraqi people don't want it, and so on and so forth. And we have to understand why these wars are being fought. When certain opportunistic people are the ones leading the charge, it hurts the movement.
Right. It hurts credibility.
Right, it does, and you're way more gracious to combat veterans than I would ever be. I think we should be there because we have a wage we have to work off. We have repentance we have to do. We have atonement to make. Yeah. So I think that there's a reason for it that way. But certainly, I think what you have is when you have distractions, and that's what a lot of this is, distractions about personalities, about organizations. When you have people and organizations leading things that are opaque at best, and you see within them violent fragmentation occurring. I mean, I'll say about the Libertarian Party with this Mises Caucus and the fragmentation that has occurred within the Libertarian Party. I could tell you about this event you're talking about on February 19th. Yeah. It really split the Green Party. The idea that there wasn't going to be a focus on anti-war, and I'll also say a lot of these folks who are involved in this protest, I would not really describe them as anti-war. I think an anti-war position is that Russia's invasion, it was criminal, it was obscene, and it should be opposed. But it was provoked by the actions of NATO and the United States. I mean, I think that's an anti-war position. You're
offering nuance.
No, you're making intelligent, reasonable discussion.
Well, I mean, it's kind of. I remember this last year. I mean, that was my statement was paraphrasing James Connolly, the great Irish socialist rebel, from 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago. He was murdered in 1960, and so. But the idea of neither king nor Kaiser. Like that during the First World War, the Irish were forced to choose between the king or the Kaiser. And that's complete nonsense. It's like being forced in our electoral system, right? Yeah. Choose between Biden or Trump or Buttigieg and DeSantis, right? I mean, you have to make this choice. And so I think this is one of the incompetencies we see over the decades, the inability for organizations to focus and to get things done, but rather to become ways for certain charismatic individuals to highlight themselves. And of course, these individuals oftentimes have not competency, or they're greedy or whatever. And so, I mean, I'm not just talking about this anti-war rally that a lot of people are. This is generally, I think, yeah.
It's a lot of egos with these people. And the fact that there's splintering and issues with planning an anti-war rally is very telling to me. It's like you people can't even get along enough to protest fighting. Like
Right.
it's ludicrous, but I agree with what you're saying. I don't know that the rallies and the protests, what it does do, it doesn't change policy necessarily, but it does build coalition and camaraderie when it's done properly.
Correct.
And it's done like, I think, and that is important, because then ultimately that can lead to the next like link in the chain.
Like, think about somebody
Right.
like you who served in combat as a Marine, and obviously the overwhelming majority of Marines identify as conservative, and that's fine. But I'm willing to bet that even though you identify as socialist, that because you are Semper Fi, that your brothers, regardless of where they stand politically, especially if they understand the, the uselessness of war, that they would stand and lock arms with you any day, libertarian and so
Right.
forth. To
Yeah.
me, the power of that message of you standing side by side, of a socialist and a libertarian standing side by side, saying we have a crisis in this country of endless war, and we have to figure out how to fight it. That message will resonate 10 times stronger than any message that one of these popular YouTube
Correct.
personalities who never served in the military, mind you, are going to espouse and think, oh yeah, we're really doing something here. If anything, what you numbnuts should do is set up the event, get as many people there, and don't even dare think about getting on the mic. Be there, cover it, shoot it for your channel. A lot of people will watch, but you have no business speaking.
What are your thoughts, Matthew?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think these points are all really valid, not just for this specific issue, but in a general context of organizing, about movement building, and about getting things done. If you're organizing an event and you are taking people into your event who have said things that are controversial, who that major elements of the base movements of the larger say, anti-war movement are going to be opposed to, well, you're causing predictably to occur what has occurred, this fragmentation. You're choosing to be provocative. You're choosing to have these distractions. You're choosing to cause these problems. Look, I mean, I've no problem speaking with people I don't agree with. I've spoke at CPAC, and the fact that they've had me speak there, it's been 10 years or whatever, but I mean, like, I have no problem doing that, and I was accepted there. And as well too, the man I called my friend, the man I learned a lot from, the late Walter Jones of North Carolina, who was a Republican. I'm not sure what we would agree on other than opposing the wars, but I'll go to my grave always admiring him. And he was an anti-war member of Congress, probably the most prominent anti-war member of Congress on the Republican side outside of Ron Paul, and certainly one of the most important in the overall Congress. John Boehner hated him. But he represented Camp Lejeune, the Marine Corps base in North Carolina. He represented that district. And he had thousands and thousands of Marines, veterans, their families, contractors in his district. He was clearly anti-war. They knew this, and they reelected him over and over again, including from primary challenges, because they hated him so much, they primaried him 2 or 3 times. So, I mean, you can, I mean, in terms of how veterans understand and see these wars, I know I don't think the polling has been done in the last year and a half or 2 years, but 2 years ago, the polls had veterans of the not post 9/11 wars had a greater, disagreed with the wars at a greater rate than the public did. Not by much. Both were about 2/3, but about 2 or 3 percentage points higher for military veterans against the wars than the general public did. So, but again, it comes back to, if you're going to have these types of events, you're going to try to have this big tent, you have to be able to manage it. I mean, it's all great and good to have a big tent, but then be incompetent at it. If you show up at a big tent without the long poles to put the big tent up, what are you going to have? You're just going to mess on the ground. I mean, like, one of the things, so I've worked with Ann Coulter, I've worked with Grover Norquist, people who I just don't want anything to do with otherwise, who on anti-war stuff.
Rub off on you, man. That shit could rub off on you.
You can also learn from them. I mean, I learned more from Grover Norquist than, I mean, it just in sense of how he understood things and how competent he was. You would go to these breakfasts in DC that you would have, there'd be 300 people in there, and they'd all be talking about all kinds of stuff. And they all got in line and walked together, right? They were able to get things done,
But
yeah.
But that, Matt, is the rub and the difference between conservatives and liberals.
Right.
Conservatives actually succeed and actually have incentive to succeed. And if they don't succeed, Grover Norquist is a multimillionaire because he serves his cause extremely well, I believe, with the Cato Institute. If he wasn't doing his job well, he would not be making the money he's making. However, on the Democratic side, you could be a complete and utter buffoon and still make money and still be presented as somebody of value, which is just so, again, weird. You don't have to support the conservative cause. But when it comes to the Ann Coulters and the Grover Norquists of the world, Karl Rove. I think Karl Rove is one of the most despicable humans ever in politics.
Ever.
But he delivers.
Right. And that's where you have to be wise in how you make your choices and who you ally with. Will this person advance your cause, and will it be effective to partner with these people, or will it just be a shit show? Are you going to anger a ton of people who are your part of your constituency, people that you claim that you represent, your allies? Are you going to anger them and then achieve nothing? Or can you make the case to them that, look, by working with these people who want to do A, B, and C, we can, though, achieve D, and we're still going to fight them. I mean, but that's what I don't see happening, though. I mean, there's a lot of say, oh, you got to work with, but are these people worth working with? And that's, I think one of the aspects of competency that you don't see. But I also think we have a lot of people on the left, again, the egos that just want the fight, that want the drama. I mean, I could tell you that, I saw in the Green Party people who were 100% invested in fighting each other. No effort made to fight the Democratic or Republican parties, though. No interest in that. Maybe they were afraid to do that. Maybe because it's safer to fight. Safer to fight the people in your own little party on your listservs or whatever nonsense they do than to actually fight the actual people that matter, and that's what I wonder about with a lot of this. I don't want to fight these YouTube personalities. I want to fight Boeing. I want to fight Lockheed. I want to fight Mike Rogers on the House Armed Services Committee.
Yeah.
I want to fucking burn the Pentagon down. This is what I want to do. Fighting with these celebrities does nothing for me. It doesn't do anything for me. All it does is it gets me wrapped into this cycle of, Twitter nonsense that, gets us nowhere. But if that's your gig, if that's your grift, you can keep doing that for quite a long time. Yeah.
With that being said, though, thoughts on that there is actually going to be a rally for Julian Assange, as I'm sitting here and looking at him sitting behind you, in D.C. on International Press Freedom Day, which is May 3rd this year. And it's a big thing that's it's being done by the Assange defense, but there's stuff happening all around the world. And I'm actually going to go.
Great. I will see you there.
I was going to ask you, are you going to be there? Because
I will be there.
Yeah, for things, and I hear you with rallying and stuff, but I just feel like this, and I'm assuming they're doing it in front of the Justice Department. I mean, I don't, because I don't think we can stand near the White House anymore.
Well, I don't know what, I haven't been up there into the White House in a while. I don't know how many levels of fencing they have anymore. I don't know.
Last time I was in D.C.
So it's the Justice Department, right?
Months ago, you can't get, you can now only see, the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue.
I find that despicable.
Everything else is blocked off.
That's our house.
That was one of the things that would be so great when you'd have someone to visit, and show them that, like you were, and for that you had this, like right here. Here's the White House. You could, stand. We've got a fence because we're human beings, and of course we need a fence.
But it was just a yard fence. It wasn't like you could still walk up and see it.
I took a field trip to the White House.
I've been in there.
I would do it all the time. Today, that doesn't exist anymore.
But have you ever been in there? Have you ever?
I was actually, when I was in the Marine Corps, I was a White House liaison officer.
Okay, I've done it, but they don't do that anymore. You can't just go there anymore.
No, you can't get into Congress. That's my understanding. Is you can't get into Congress anymore. I mean, it's been really difficult to get in the Capitol building for forever. However, to get into the House office and the Senate office buildings, you just walked in. You walk in with your dog. Maybe they used to encourage that. Bring your dog to go see your member of Congress.
Not anymore.
No.
Maybe it's a sign of the deterioration of our society.
Well, they're scared of the proletariat as well. They should be. And that's really what it is. And I've said it, Nancy, you're not going to be able to build a moat wide enough, sweetheart. It's just not going to happen for you.
That's exactly right. I mean, of course, they utilized the pandemic up. Everyone's good. We got it, which there, some validity to that. But then when that was relaxed, they had January 6th, and they've utilized January 6th as reason to keep people out of those offices. The ability to have to walk into, the House office or Senate office buildings and just walk into your senator or congressman's office. I mean, everything else, we know how corrupted and how cynical we are about this, and I shouldn't say cynical, I should say skeptical, because that's I think the right way to say it. But the ability to do that meant something. It really meant something. The number of times when I was up there working on the Hill, it mattered because you would be able to talk to members of Congress. And it's an uphill battle. You're banging your head against the wall, but at least you had that space to talk to them. And now that of course is, and I can't imagine if it's ever going to come back,
Well,
but with the Assange rally,
an illusion. You're saying there was an illusion of public service that they maintained.
I don't know about that. I mean, there was a degree of it. I mean, certainly we had, this is I guess a long conversation about the effectiveness of saying the anti-war work, the anti-Afghanistan work we did in 2011, 2012 up there. And the members that we did get to sign on to letters and did get to show the White House, look, they're disobeying your rules here. They're disobeying, Al Franken was a big one time for us. Like, we were able to persuade him to go against the White House. The White House didn't want to have that type of pressure on them. The whole thing was very well orchestrated by the White House in 2009 through 2013, their Afghanistan, how they conducted it. But, it really was, that ability. And did we have any of the clout or that General Dynamics had, or that ADM has, or that Coca-Cola has, or that any of the corporations have? Of course not. It wasn't like I was Goldman Sachs coming in my golden winged chariot, throwing bricks of gold to these people. But we still had that ability, and we still were able to have some effect. Take that away, then you have no effect. So I don't know if it's right to argue that having a semblance of hope is better than no hope. But at least it's a semblance I get. But the Assange rally,
accessibility is important when you're talking about public servants.
Right. And it's a way that you can fight back. It's at least you're making them uncomfortable. At least you're showing that you're there. Like my friend Walter Jones, he was very much on board with the Iraq War. He's the guy that, if people remember this back in 2003, when the French refused to join the invasion of Iraq, Walter Jones was the guy that got the House cafeteria to rename French fries to freedom fries. He was all on board with the Iraq War. And then what was happening, though, was accessibility. And he had people, what really happened was he had people bring him to funerals. He was going to the funerals of the Marines and sailors from Camp Lejeune who were getting killed over in that horror show and that fucking crime. And that's what changed him. So you have that type of accessibility. You have maybe the ability to impact people. And it's not going to be all 535, but maybe a few. And then you do other things around the edges. You do things asymmetrically. You find a crack. You spread it open. That's how we have to keep fighting this. But with the Assange rally, May 3rd, we had one in October that was well attended. A lot of great speakers. And I expect the same for this. And what's happening with Assange, of course, is a crime simply for exposing crimes.
Where are you? So you're having something. Do you have movements and stuff from your organization here? Like, are you guys all over the place? Do you have a group down where we are?
No, we're pretty small. Again, we're more like a speakers bureau, a national speakers bureau, bringing the idea being that one of the things that you understand about the weapons industry, like any other industry, they have a whole host of people on their payroll that every day their job is to get up, get clean, look good, and get prepared to go on television. Excuse me. And what they have is a whole team behind them that pitches them.
Yeah.
So every day there are professionals who are sending the CBS News to CNN to the Wall Street Journal, whatever. Hey, I've got retired Major General so-and-so who can come on and talk about Chinese balloons. You know, he was the first guy to pilot a balloon over the Himalayas or something like that.
Right,
you know, I mean,
right.
right. You know, they're able to, right. How would you like to have a guy come on today who was a SEAL in Iraq and Afghanistan to talk about the Ukraine war, right? You know, all that stuff, that pitching, that's so important to actually getting access to media. And so that's what we're attempting to do on the anti-war side.
Well,
all the power to you, because that is not an easy message that they're wanting to accept. And we know that people get fired for that message.
You'll always have an invitation here, my friend. This is
thank you.
Message, you know, small but mighty.
We're small but mighty. Remind me where you are in North Carolina.
I'm in Wake Forest, North Carolina. So
but
not
how
where.
far is that from Raleigh?
Right next door to Raleigh.
Okay.
Right next door to Raleigh.
Right. No, I don't know. I've never been east of Charlotte, but this summer I'm going to do a road trip out to the Outer Banks from Asheville afterwards, and I'm going to go through Raleigh and that area.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah. So that's what I was asking. But
I have to make a few, like food suggestions and stops.
Yeah, and I'll come and take you out for a drink or something. We'll go.
Definitely.
We'll have an opportunity to meet up in DC.
Yeah, we can definitely meet up in DC.
Yeah. But the Outer Banks, you'll love it.
I know.
They are a true treasure, and they're doing a somewhat okay job with keeping commercialization and development to a minimum, and that's all relative to the rest of this country. You know, it's beautiful, particularly say compared to South Carolina.
Come to Florida. Come to Florida.
No, save yourself.
You
Matthew.
can't stop. You can't. They can't stop building.
Yeah, I mean,
and it really doesn't matter who's in charge. They say it's the GOP, but the reality is, the most blue counties in Florida are the ones that just will not stop building.
In North Carolina, when I was campaigning last year, the place that I heard the most about in terms of development and the creation of one more luxury hotel after another, you know, and how we're just letting people die homeless on the street, was Asheville. Over and over again, Asheville, which is... Right. I mean, like deep blue Asheville, supposedly is hippie paradise, but it's not. It's all these wealthy liberal folks with their second homes, you know. Mm-hmm. But the same thing here too. In deep blue Wake County, we had 75 homeless folks die on our streets last year. Yeah.
But don't worry, thoughts and prayers, and put a nice sign in your yard, and that'll make everything better.
Yeah, well, here they just bulldoze the encampments here. Yeah. Here they they come and bulldoze them.
We're giving $1 billion to Apple, right? The only country the only company with more wealth than Apple is the Saudi King's Oil Company, right? We're giving them $1 billion. We're giving Toyota $3 billion or $4 billion to build a bat. I mean, it's the most profitable, you know, biggest car company in the world. We've got, honest to God, we're giving $500 million to a plane company to build the next version of the Concorde, which went out of business. So we're going to build another one. They haven't even built the thing yet. There's no actual mock-up. It's all on blueprints. But we're giving them $500 million, you know? Well, and meanwhile, 75 people are dying on the streets every year in Wake County.
This is exactly why we need to build a real labor movement.
Well, this is capitalism run amok.
Yeah.
And Matthew understands that very clearly, because this is unfettered, unbridled,
system is broken.
Predatory capitalism.
It's a broken system, and we have to do what we can to do what is necessary to build this unilateral coalition of a lot of like-minded people who understand that all of these wedge issues and things that we find ourselves getting distracted by all the time. Yeah, there are things that are relevant without question, but unless we deal with the core issue of our time, which is corporate special interests controlling our government, it doesn't matter what else we do. It's a waste of time. So
yeah, I'm getting lefter and lefter, Matthew. I think I'm going to fall off the side at some point. I'm waiting for that to happen. Like, I didn't think, you know, I think that doing the show, like I'm telling you, I keep getting lefter and lefter.
I don't think it's a question of being left. I think it's just a question of being a pro-worker, you know, anti-corruption. And that is,
well, but I'm getting lefter on everything.
Well,
that's my issue. That's why I always say the opinions of Peter do not always reflect that of me. But
well, I mean, I think you guys a lot of us are like this. We don't like using this left-right axis to define, but we do because it's easy. It's because what our culture does, and it's because how we're semantically trained and everything else. But you know, right? I mean, exactly. What we have to really do is get people to understand that we're all in this together.
Yes.
I mean, the people we talk to, right, that are not getting health care or foregoing health care or 3 months behind their health care payments, they think they're the only ones like that. And they think it's because they've done something wrong.
We're told that.
Exactly. Yeah, right. I mean, all these folks who are living paycheck to paycheck, 63% of Americans, almost all of them think that it's because they did something wrong. They didn't go to the right school. They didn't study hard enough. They didn't work hard enough. They're not smart enough. They're the only ones like this. I should be embarrassed about this, rather than appreciating the fact that almost most Americans are just like you. And it's the system that has caused this, not your lack of individual effort.
Totally.
Matt, can't thank you enough.
And if you ever did run for president, I'm just saying, Peter and I would be very happy to work with you on that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Let him live his life. I'm sure running for Senate definitely takes a hell of a lot out of you.
I just thought it was funny that he's like, that he was like telling you that. But
keep in touch, and we will definitely
I'll see you in DC.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good night. And thanks everyone for watching.
Anytime.
Oh, he's lovely. He's adorable. I love him.
He's certainly one of your favorites.
He is one of my favorites. Because how could you not like him? I understand how anybody couldn't like him.
Definitely walks the walk.
Oh, he's just great.
Don't. But again, that's the whole, I said, but again.
And he's right about that stuff. And the way he said it, he doesn't have he could not give a flying fuck about all of that online nonsense. And he just does not, anybody who's a serious person is not going to get involved in that crap. Because that's not serious. He's serious. He actually is coming up with strategies to do things. It's fascinating. And I think that is really smart. You go through the state legislatures and you take their national guards off of the table so that is no longer a viable option. You know, you do what you can where you can. That's strategy. Fighting with a whole bunch of other content creators about who should have the bigger name on the bigger banner at a freaking protest is not it.
Let me tell you, I wouldn't mind actually being at that anti-war rally just to see what an absolute crap show it's going to turn into.
I didn't realize that they split. Like, I didn't realize there was a whole thing. I'm not surprised.
Apparently there's this guy that's also speaking there that apparently was involved with, might have been involved in some type of, I don't know what the hell you would call
so
it.
He doesn't pass enough of like some sort of like purity test for some people?
No, I'm talking about he went to prison and it was for underage sex solicitation or something like that. Yeah, I'm not kidding. So that's the type of stuff that's going on.
Just people, when you're planning an event, you know, you got to think about stuff like that, just because unfortunately that those things do come into play. I mean, that's just reality. That being said, I do think that the Assange thing looks somewhat promising.
Yeah. All right. Well, then I guess I'll book.
I mean, if you're going to, I didn't know you were going, but I have like, I'm going to be there for 2 nights, and it's like I'm going to be there May 2nd and 3rd. And,
all right.
I'm not saying you need to go,
no, but I think it's a trip worth having. It'll give us an opportunity to perhaps do some stuff in DC. So yeah. All right. I mean, it's Assange. I support him 100%. And if you like our content and like our guests as our wonderful supporters like Double K, Carrie, Mario, and so on, go to patreon.com/generational change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a wonderful supporter of our channel. Those who decide to give a little bit more, like $10 a month, will get themselves the Mansion Parliamentarian bumper sticker.
Because, guys, you always want to vote for the real power in the party.
It is now featured on Status Quo News. Jordan Cheriton has it over his United Corporations of America flag.
That's really funny.
You'll definitely want to put that bad boy on your car. It'll definitely get a kick from most people, I am sure. But for those who are extremely generous and are willing to be $25 a month patrons, they get the wonderful Generational Change baseball jersey.
It's a jersey.
Triple blend. Tri-blend. I say triple blend.
I know. You just love to be annoying as hell about it.
I am a salesman.
It's not selling anything.
It is selling.
I don't
I'll keep trying until eventually someone gives in. But yes, we really appreciate your support.
And anybody who's new, that is a new patron, guys, if you're on there, check out. I have a poll up. I'm trying to figure out if new people would be interested in going back to having a monthly members meeting.
Tongue twister.
Monthly members meeting. And I'd be happy to do that. Also take ideas. And something else that I think we're going to start doing is I think we should start having like regular people, local people come on and file their grievances. Like, for example, I did. Okay. And he would like to come on. And I think that we should start a thing where we get regular people coming on and giving their observations as constituents as to what they're receiving from their public officials. What do you guys think?
You like that idea?
And also, as I said last time, guys, I'm looking for a group of Gen Zers that would like to participate in a show on this channel that's going to be called the Gen Z Report. The format is to be determined. At this point, I'm kind of liking the idea of starting it with me sort of moderating and having like a few different people. And then as it goes, letting those few people sort of just take over and do their own kind of show. And it would be sort of like The View, where it's just, you're just discussing different things as a format.
The View.
It's The View. But you're in different places. But anyways, guys, if anybody out there, if you're in Gen Z, and you're interested in participating on our channel and speaking and doing, having a show, send us your information, write us an email, generationalchange@gmail.com, and tell us you're interested, because I really would like to get a group of young people together that are interested in, even if it's rotating. So it wouldn't necessarily be a big time commitment. So if we did it once a week and we had enough people, we would rotate different groups of people through and just have your guys' opinion on stuff and let you guys lead the conversation.
And if you are so inclined, you can go to Cash App, $Gen Change, if you do not want to put your credit card on file. And here is our email address. You can go to
so Gen Zers, look me up. I'd like to have a show with you. I'd like to have you come on and be talking about Gen Z issues.
The Good View.
Yes, The Good View. And we were originally going to have Jaden do that. However, Jaden is now leaving us. He also has moved on to bigger and brighter pastures, as he is now the head of the Democratic College, the College Dems,
Florida
College Dems caucus. And he's also going to be moving to Tallahassee. So that's not right. So guys, if you are interested, let me know. What do we have coming up?
On Wednesday, we are going to be doing a crossover podcast with Mr. Libertarian of Miami himself, Clint Russell of Libertarian Lockdown, or Liberty Lockdown.
I don't know that podcast.
Yeah, no, it's
okay.
He mostly does it on Twitter, but it'll be interesting to have him on here. He is a friend of David Smith. So for those people out there who want us to get Dave Smith on the podcast,
I don't know who that is.
Dave Smith's probably the most noted libertarian that's out there.
But when you're saying libertarian, do you mean Big L the party, or libertarian in that just they have like a libertarian sort of philosophy, or are they actual party, libertarian party people?
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm asking you this because there's a difference.
We love you, Double K. Absolutely. Well, we would definitely say that the best donations, not that the super chats aren't appreciated, but if you want to get the most bang for your buck, Patreon and Cash App are the two best places to go.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind if you are considering a financial contribution to our show.
And I would like to also say, guys, if you haven't watched Jordan's coverage, Jordan Chariton on Status Quo's coverage of the spill in East Palestine, and his interview that he did with that guy who's like, he's just outside the mile radius that was evacuated, and he owns like an animal rescue type farm, and all his foxes are dying and have neurological damage, and he's having all this, like, no, seriously, this is friggin' horrible. And I just want to say that
it's not Pete Buttigieg's fault, though.
I would just like to say that we made a donation to his GoFundMe.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to abide dead foxes.
No,
so I'm just, and it's not just dead foxes. It's sort of what that stands for. But this guy, and I'm sure there's thousands of people just like him in that area that are going to be struggling. When you can't just move, you have animals, you have rural people that have animals. You can't just move. What do you do if you have farm animal?
No, get a better job,
it's very, like, you can evacuate. Okay, you can evacuate for a couple of days, but your animals are all going to die. Yes. I'm just, and the 25,000 from the railroad carrier just should be somebody. Honestly, I would rather take that money and set it on fire in the lobby of their building. Seriously, $5 per person is what that comes out to.
Hey,
I'm livid. Like, that's just crazy.
We appreciate you guys more than you know. Your support is obviously very much appreciated. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, do all those wonderful things. Obviously, we will be back on Wednesday. We're
going to be talking with the libertarians.
Yes, I will most likely be on Status Quo either tomorrow or Wednesday. So be on the lookout for that.
Are you going to be you, or are you going to be someone else?
Well, it might be somebody. I don't know.
Sometimes Peter is other people. It's sort of like multiple personalities.
Depending on how I feel, right? Well, Ben Shapiro now lives down here in Florida.
Does he really?
Yes, he does.
Is he in Palm Beach?
No, I'm not telling you where I am.
Wait, you don't know where he is?
I definitely know where he is. He is not here, but he's close by.
He's got to be in Palm Beach.
I can assure you that I am doing really well down here. Florida is not going underwater. It is a wonderful state, and I am very, very happy. Did you know that? We should go find out where our studio is and invade, take over, make it our show. His audience will be our audience, and that'll be that.
I find him to be just so insufferable.
Hmm.
I find him insufferable. I would like to bring someone like Chris Hitchens back from the dead and lock him in a room with Ben Shapiro for 10 minutes and just see what that does to Ben.
That'll never happen, so never make such a suggestion like that again.
He's just such an idiot.
I should really, really consider doing a podcast as Ben Shapiro and just saying all the ridiculous things that he says in the reverse. Talking about the importance of labor unions and why they matter and why you must support one. But if you have any consideration for working people in this country,
we need to make a mask of him, though, like we have of Trump. We need to make a mask of Ben Shapiro.
That makes absolutely no sense. I can absolutely be Ben Shapiro, and that'll definitely convince people that they are listening to the real thing.
He just thinks if he talks fast, he sounds smart.
I am totally talking over you because you can't stop me. I am running away like a runaway freight train that's about to run off the tracks.
Well, we're used to derailments now.
Yeah.
Okay, so the poeticness of the fact that this, and by the way, these types of things happen more often than people realize. Way more than people realize. It's just that it may happen where there's no people. It may happen where it's just, really poor people and nobody else notices or cares. But these things happen. And it has a lot to do with the crumbling infrastructure that we have.
No, that's a great idea. Let's have a mask of me. I come on the show and I'll talk all the time about how you got to pump yourself up. And then after that, you have to take care of the environment. It's very important. I don't want to say get to the chopper because that's just common, but I have to say that you have to get to the garden. Get to the garden and plant things and do things. It's really great. So,
yeah, it's okay. For the people that listen to the podcast, like the people that are audio only, it's infinitely better. I think I think that it's infinitely better when you're audio only, because then it's just,
I'm right here.
Like when you did it when we were on the phone that time, it was really kind of freaky.
Well, when I would do,
it was, I don't even remember who it was, but when I'm not sitting next to you and I'm not looking at you, it's kind of crazy.
I went on the campaign and I would go and tell people that I really appreciate what they're doing for the family, and we get a kick out of that.
So are you telling me that on President's Day, we're having workers strike back, and are you telling me that Shama Sawant's coming?
No, that's actually got to change. We got to change the schedule.
Because I was going to get all excited right there.
Well, I think what we should do on President's Day, I want to try to organize bringing on the Canadelic people. I want to bring on a panel.
Okay, that's great. And I love that. But is there any sort of connection because it's President's Day? I'm sitting here is there a connection between the weed people and President's Day?
I would love to have Shama come on the podcast, but unfortunately she is of non-commitment at this time. So we'll keep working to make it happen. So,
I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
I've been a big fan of your work for a long time, and I'd love to talk to you.
That would be good. Anyway, thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you Wednesday.